do not want your image, if you don't want your image on the recording, you might want to, you know, not show your image. Close
Right. Yes, absolutely. Please turn off your camera because it is being recorded. And
of,
yes, Larry, were you going to
or
say?
feel free to leave it on. We just
Yes,
want you to know that you'll be recorded.
yes. We just want to say that we are recording so that we can have this in replay. So thank you everyone for being here.
And I love how everyone is putting in where they're zooming from. It's so exciting to see all the different places people are calling in from.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. And we are recording, so if you could stay muted, we would appreciate that so much. I do want to let you know that we are going to be staying on. This webinar is 1 hour, but after we stop recording, after we officially end, we're going to stay on for a while and talk about all things multilingual learners. We won't be recording at that time, so we invite you to stay with us after the recording.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we don't have a set agenda for that time, just if there's anything that people want to talk about.
right. Absolutely.
Sort of like if this was at a conference, presenters
100.
would hang out and chat with people, with attendees.
That's what we would
So,
do in the hall or up at the front. Absolutely. We're so excited to introduce the folks that are here. I really appreciate that everybody is joining us. I want to go ahead and make sure that we say that, well, let's tell a little bit about ourselves before I'm trying to go. Yeah, we
so
have a mentee first. Isn't that before we talk about ourselves?
yes, yeah. So what we'd like people to do to get started is to try to think of one word that would describe how your students are doing right now. And then click on a link in the chat for the Mentimeter. Is that correct?
That's right. Can you guys see the mentee slide? Would you give me a thumbs up? Wonderful. So I'll be screen sharing as that gets populated, but
And
that
is the link in the chat?
I'm putting that in the chat right now. Thank you. But
Again, how your students are feeling.
yes.
A
So
little later, we'll give you we're interested in how you're feeling too, but we'll give you an opportunity to talk about that later.
absolutely. So the link is in the chat, but you can also use this QR code. You could also go to menti.com and type in that code. And you can see, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. If you know how Menti works, the words that are entered most often become larger as a visual representation. So let's give folks, thank you guys who are contributing.
Great. And we also want to point out that about 400 people have actually signed up for this webinar. So who may be arriving late, or like many webinars that I participated in, are just going to watch the recording at their convenience.
Absolutely. So they aren't going to be able to participate in this Menti, but this is something for us to think about, just watching it form, right?
Mhm. Well, my sense is that students are feeling a little anxious.
We can give it just a few more minutes. It's interesting. You do have some folks saying kiddos are thriving. Kiddos
Yeah, which is
are
great.
yes.
I
Yes.
love I love that hopeful is one of the words that is really large on here, right? And resilient, that's beautiful.
100%. Okay, and again, you'll be able to see that in replay. I am going to go ahead and bring us back. I'm going to ask Elise if you would go ahead and screen share, Elise, so that we can, because we're going to be talking to you so much and you might want to share things. And I know you have access to
We're
just
going
a
to
big,
introduce ourselves first, right?
yes, Elise is going to share that
Oh,
slide.
she has that slide. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'll do. Thanks. And thanks everybody for being here. And while we get our webinar off the ground. Okay. Well, I don't think this man needs any introduction, but I'm doing it all the time. So I'm very happy to be the one to welcome Larry Ferlazzo. He is recently retired after teaching English language learners and English proficient students at Luther Burbank High. And look at the applause that's going. That's so great. In Sacramento for 23 years. He's the author of 13 books, including the ELL Teacher's Toolbox. And he's been a teacher advice columnist for Education Week for the past 16 years. This does not even come close to talking about everything Larry has contributed. Larry, you have a new book coming out with Katie Holsnepsky soon, yes?
Yes, the Better Teacher's Toolbox. That'll be out this summer
We can't wait.
or next summer. Yes.
Well, you are always my top tip that I tell people if you're going to follow one guy, he's the guy. So
You're very kind, Carol.
thank you for joining us. Thank you, Larry.
And I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Carol Salva, who is an education consultant and the co-author, as everybody knows, Boosting Achievement, Reaching Students with Limited or Interrupted Formal Education, and DIYPD. I know I interviewed you about that for that book for Education Week, A Guide to Self-Directed Learning for Teachers of Multilingual Learners. So, and I should, as I always tell people, not only is Boosting Achievement, one of the required books that every ELL teacher should have, it is without a doubt the best designed book for teachers, for any teacher of any education book I've ever seen. Carol has taught elementary, middle, and high school, and as a Seidlitz education's consultant, Carol and the newcomer division offer training, coaching, and modeling of sheltered instruction. She's also the host of the great Boosting Achievement ESL podcast.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much. That's a huge honor. But and as an aside, my co-author for Boosting Achievement, who is Anna Mattis, is here. And I'm so grateful. I'm always saying my co-author, and Anna is helping us. And I just appreciate very much all the support. Mark Cotham is also here from our company helping us behind the scenes. So thank you guys. If the book is beautiful and well made, it's Anna's production division that's doing that.
I actually I've sent copies of that book to my publishers. So for them to see the kind of design.
Thank you so much for that. And speaking of books and Seidlitz and things like that, I'm honored and thrilled to introduce our main person that we are interviewing today. A lot of you all know Elise White Diaz. Elise is an education consultant with Seidlitz Education, specializing in support for culturally and linguistically diverse students from hard places. She brings over 25 years of K-12 experience working with children at risk in the United States and Central America. She is the author of Discover, Connect, Respond, a practical approach to trauma-informed instruction, and previously served in North Texas public education in various ESL roles. And one of the reasons we decided to do this webinar is that we are getting so many questions right now about this topic. And Elise has this new book, Discover, Connect, Respond, that has been so wildly popular. And she has agreed to give us some tips today. And we just thought it would be wonderful for Larry to ask her some questions about this. So thank you for joining us, Elise.
Yes, thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm so excited for this conversation with the three of us, each bringing our different experience, our different time working with our multilingual students and culturally and linguistically diverse students from hard places. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now and turn it over to Larry to begin our questions.
Right. Well, as all of us know, many of our ELL students often experience a lot of trauma. They come from challenging situations in their home countries, uh, oftentimes on their own, are not always living with their nuclear families. And as we all know, many of our students are experiencing significant trauma right now from um, ICE raids. Recent studies have shown that if students feel that their parents or family members or themselves are under risk of deportation, that it has a negative impact on academic achievement as well as mental health. I mean, in my old school, 2 weeks after I retired in June, was the first immigration raid in Sacramento. And I'm on a text thread, so I was able to hear it was happening a block away from our school, and I alerted our school, and quickly everyone heard about it. And that was basically the last day. It was the first day of summer school. It was the last day that any of our students attended summer school. People just decided to stay home. And that fear continues now. And this is, I think, a particularly timely webinar in light of that obvious trauma that many of our students are experiencing. So I'd like to start. My first question to Elise is, trauma-informed teaching is sort of a buzz phrase in education. How would you define it, and how would you recommend that teachers describe it to their administrators and colleagues so they take it seriously and don't just view it as sort of la la?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love what you were saying there, Larry, about how it's a different time for our multilingual students and how this uncertainty is impacting their academic achievement. And regarding a definition of trauma-informed teaching, I think it would be helpful for us first to get around a common definition of trauma. Because I'm very privileged that I get to travel around the country and meet with a lot of different school districts. And one thing that I've noticed is that there is a lot of different definitions about trauma around there. And like I tell my 12-year-old daughter, if everything is trauma, then nothing is, right? But then on the other hand, we also don't want to limit it too much. So I have a definition of trauma that actually comes from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, a federal agency that is in line with common definitions. It's on my Padlet, and I'd love to read it to you guys directly because I feel like it's a really helpful definition for us to understand as educators. And this is something that educators can share with their administrators or their district personnel to get behind the same definition. So I'm going to reshare screen with you so that I can share this definition with you guys.
Can I jump in, Elise, and say, we are going to put the link to Elise's Padlet, this link that you're seeing here. You're going to get these slides that are clickable in replay. Every link we share will be emailed to you as a slide deck, and it is clickable. So you won't miss anything. As long as you registered, you will get that. But I'm also going to drop links in the chat because Elise is being very generous in sharing this with us as well. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elise.
No, thank you for saying that. Okay, so when we're talking about trauma, we need to think about the event, the experience, and the effect. This is what makes trauma different from some other things. And so, as you can see here with this definition, it results from an individual's response to a real or perceived threatening event or set of circumstances that overwhelms their ability to cope. Can we see how a lot of our multilingual students are experiencing this right now? Resulting in lasting changes in the brain, nervous system, and overall functioning. So this is the third part. This is the effect. And so it starts to wire our nervous systems for stress as opposed to calm and connection. And this is an important definition for us to understand because it's about the event, but it's also about how we experience the event. So two students can experience the same traumatic type journey to the United States, and one person can walk away unscathed from it, but somebody else could walk away with that traumatic experience lodged in their nervous system and lodged in their body and start experiencing some repercussions from that. So this definition, as I said, is from that federal agency, and feel free to share it with anyone that you like. And it's important for us to understand this because here we go with that trauma-informed definition that you were asking about, Larry. Another phrase that's very popular is trauma sensitive. I like that phrase too, but I like trauma informed because what this means is that our knowledge about trauma and nervous system informs how we teach, how we understand that students learn. And we know that I like the metaphor that Dr. Dan Siegel uses about the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain, which is even greater than the affective filter, in my opinion. We all know about that from Stephen Krashen. But when a person is flooded with these emotions of stress in their downstairs brain, it's very difficult for them to climb to the top of their brain where language happens and logic and memory. And so these are things that are very important for educators to know that inform our teaching practice. And it also changes our response because we understand that if a student is in a state of emotional dysregulation, like they are experiencing such strong emotions that they feel like they can't think logically, we have to help them to regulate their emotional experience before we can ask them to think logically about the situation. So this goes along with Dr. Bruce Perry's neurosequential model. He asks us to regulate, relate, and then reason with students. And often the opposite happens in the classroom, right? We ask students to reason with us before they're emotionally regulated. And I see you smiling over there, Larry. Did you ever experience that?
Oh yeah. Well, and it goes along with the, if a student is clearly not doing well, some teachers say, well, you should go outside and fill out a form about how you're feeling and, about what you could be doing differently, right? Which is
Yeah.
like the worst thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And
maybe go
that,
outside and get a drink of water, take a walk. Yes, don't be
yes.
writing down why you acted the way you did and what you should have done before.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes back into this trauma-informed definition as well, too, because it really is systematic and it's thinking about how are all the different pieces of the school system informed by what we know about trauma? How does this affect office referrals? How does this affect how we deal with behavior? How does this affect what we do when we notice that a student has lagging markers in terms of language development? And so it's a really all-encompassing definition, and I've seen some schools that are doing some really cool things with this, but we're kind of on the beginning work of this, and it's just so exciting to see different schools adopting trauma-informed multilingual education because we want to include our multilinguals in this as well, and what we know about cultural differences and how language develops. So does that answer the question,
I
Larry?
think it does.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Before we go on to the next question, I'm going to ask two questions of participants. First, we asked earlier how you think your students were doing. Now we'd like to know how you are doing. Okay. So,
Mhm.
but this time, just put in the chat a word or two that would describe how you are doing these days in the classroom. So we'll give a minute for people to do that.
It's fun reading some of these tired and excited,
Mm.
overwhelmed, hopeful but frustrated, right?
Yeah, well, I suspect if I was in the classroom right now, I'd be feeling pretty overwhelmed. I mean, I'm actually doing volunteer tutoring, but that's a whole different situation than actually having to teach a class. So hang in there, everybody.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to quickly, before I go on to this next question, I'm going to quickly share a story that I think demonstrates a decent job of trauma-informed teaching that I did in the classroom. And believe me, I did a couple of many more messed up versions of it before I knew what I was doing. Uh, one year, there was an article in Volks about first person description of gang violence in El Salvador. And that happened to be a year that I had a lot of Salvadorian young boys who had come unaccompanied. Some of you have been teaching for a few years, probably remember that time when so many unaccompanied youth came to the US, and they still are. And I thought it was inaccessible English. And what I did first is I talked individually to each student to see how they felt. Would they be interested in reading this in class? Right? So I asked people first when I thought there might be a trigger. Everybody agreed. And then when we got around in a circle, I said, okay, we're going to start reading this. But if anybody needs to take a break or step back, just, leave. That's fine. You could leave or go in the corner, do something else. And then people were reading. And then one student just got up, took his desk, went to the corner, was facing the corner. But people continued to read. And I could tell, even though he had his back to me, that he was having a hard time. So I asked everybody to continue to read to each other. And I went to him, and he was sobbing. And he took out his phone and he showed me the pictures in his camera of all of his friends who had been murdered in El Salvador through gang violence. And we talked for a little bit. And then and I said, well, you can just stay here. Don't worry about it. And he chose to come back and be involved with the group. Uh, and afterwards, everyone, including him, said, well, we should read more about what's going on in Central America. So I think the lessons there, first, checking in with people, listening to them, giving them permission to share how they're feeling and to acknowledge it and to honor it, and to then check in again to see, I mean, was what we want to do in the future. So I don't think it's rocket science. It's how we want to treat everybody. But I think that's a good example of trauma-informed teaching. So, and people should also feel free to put in questions or comments in the chat. I mean, I'm sure there are decades worth of experience of trauma-informed teaching among the participants. So don't view Elise or Carol or I as the only experts in the room. So Elise, from your visits to classrooms and in your conversations with practicing classroom teachers, how are some multilingual learners exhibiting trauma right now? And
Yeah,
how is it affecting classrooms?
yeah. Larry, I gotta be real. I'm still kind of shook from that last story you just told right
Oh,
now. And were you able to get him some outside support to help him with his grief?
yeah. I mean, fortunately, the great thing of being in California is that undocumented youth under the age of 18 are eligible for Medi-Cal and mental health services. So, I mean, we have counselors on class, but I mean, that's beyond in school, but that's beyond them. So we were able to get him and other classmates. I mean, that's one of the advantages of being in California in this kind of
That's good.
situation.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's kind of jumping the gun about what we're going to talk about later, but I do want to mention that sometimes as we're talking about this, educators hear, well, I need to be like a counselor for students, and that's not what we're asking in trauma-informed instruction as well. And knowing that those professional mental health providers are still essential in the task. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that story, Larry.
Yeah,
And
and I just if I just to follow up on you, I think Alex Burnett, I think that's how I pronounce it. She writes about trauma-informed teaching as well, and
yes.
she says we teachers shouldn't be trauma detectives. Right,
That's
right. I
exactly
mean, we
right.
leave that to the professionals. We can
Yes.
listen, we care, but then we got to try to connect up our students with people. It's not
Yes.
our job, and we're not trained for that.
Yeah. And back to your original question about some of the things we're seeing in the classroom, both Dr. Salva and I, we are one of the things that we really enjoy doing. I think I could speak for you on this, Carol, is we love to go back into the classrooms and support teachers in some of these strategies. And so that's one of the things we do with Seidlitz Education as consultants. And so when I walk into classrooms all across the country, it's very difficult to identify trauma. We don't want to be trauma detectives, just like you said, right, Larry? And like Alex says. What we can notice, however, are stress responses. Those are easier to see. So we can see students exhibiting a response of being in fight mode, like an elevated voice. And we can see flight mode, like they're trying to escape, and we can see freeze mode when they're just shut down and they're just completely disengaged. And then also another stress response is fawning behavior. And this kind of looks like they're working really hard to please you and they might be smiling, but they look nervous at the same time, right? And so these are behaviors that I'm seeing more so than ever before, especially in high school classrooms. And we know right now, in terms of prevalence data, that a lot of people are identifying this as a mental health epidemic because it is widespread across demographics. And the current data as of 2023 is that 1 in 6 adolescents have experienced a mental health crisis, so much so that impairs normal life functioning. And those are all adolescents across the board, but even more so among marginalized populations. So think about how that impacts our multilingual students. And then 56% of these adolescents were not able to seek support. So,
Yeah, tough,
mhm.
tough situation. Well, what are specific actions and strategies that educators can take to be trauma-informed teachers right now, particularly with multilingual learners?
Yes, that's a great question. Number one, I would say is just like we're doing here, please advocate with your district and school for high quality trauma-informed instruction that includes our multilingual students. And secondly, we have one of the items to share with you guys. This is the thing that people are so excited about, and it's called the 4 S's routine. And it's an actionable way for any teacher, not just those teachers who are naturally good at this, like it sounds like you are, Larry. I'm sure your kids really connected deeply with you in your class. But our students deserve to have that sort of connection from every single staff member that they interact with in the school. And so the 4 S's routine allows them to do so. Is it okay if I share screen with you guys again and show this to you? Okay. So this is a routine for emotional attunement, and it helps students to feel seen, um, safe, and secure. And it looks specifically like this because we know a lot about trauma-informed instruction, but the reason everybody is so excited about this is because it's so actionable. It's so easy to do. You could walk out of here and start using this routine with your family members or anybody in your life. And so when you start seeing these student behaviors that look like they could be stress responses, like maybe there's a kid who has his hoodie pulled over his head and his head's down on the desk, and maybe he's got the headphones on even though he's not supposed to, the earbuds, whatever. And it's normally a kid who's really interactive with you. So instead of walking up to that kid and saying, "Hey, get to work," right? You would say, "I see that." And here you just name the visible behavior that you see. I see that you have your hoodie pulled over your head. I see that your head's down on the desk. What's going on? Then the student responds. Maybe they say, "Hey, I'm really tired because my parents were up fighting all night last night." And so for the second S, these are both stems for the educator. Then you just repeat verbatim what the student said. "It sounds like you're really tired because you were up all night with your parents fighting. Is that right?" And this is where you loop for understanding to see if you heard them accurately. And they will say, "Yeah," or whatever it is, right? So it's, I see that, it sounds like. These first two S's for students start to feel emotionally regulated just by doing these first two steps. And they start to feel more connected to you, and they feel seen, and they feel heard. The third S is suggest. And this is where we suggest an emotion word. And the reason for that is because when a student comes from a hard place, they may have a limited emotional vocabulary. They may only know that they feel mad or sad or happy or hungry, right? Especially kindergartners, it seems like. And so when we can suggest an emotional word to them, Dr. Dan Siegel says, if we can name it, then we can tame it. So simply helping them to identify what emotional experience they are experiencing helps to diffuse the power of that emotion. And so maybe it looks like this. Are you feeling down? Are you feeling helpless? And you offer some different suggestions, and maybe one resonates with them, maybe not. But they're starting to think about, how am I feeling? And so they're starting to get that emotional literacy and self-awareness. We're coaching them in this skill of attuning to themselves. The last S is support. And that is when the educator asks them, how can I help? This moves the problem solving onto the student instead of the educator saying, let me fix your problem for you, right? And this is very empowering for students. And this routine helps students to build emotional resilience, which I define as being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions and bend but not break. So this is something that anybody can do. It is very effective. And it's so much fun coaching teachers in this as well.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's something that anybody, that all teachers, no matter who they're teaching, could keep this strategy in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would love to ask folks that are in here, even just the first two S's. I see that. So just what you see. Can you tell us again an example of that first S? Like, I see that you're pulling your hoodie over your eyes is what I think the example you gave, right?
Yeah, or another example is another tool, and all these tools are on my Padlet, is I love Dr. Mark Brackett's mood meter, which places emotions on an XY quadrant in terms of energy level. And so another example of typical behavior we might see in the classroom is a kid might get into a fight mode and they're going to move extra and have explosive emotions, and they might throw something. And so you could say, I see that your voice is louder than normal, that you just threw that paper, right? what's going on? And so is that what you were looking for, Carol?
Yeah, if the first one is I see, you're just basically saying what you see.
Yes.
No, it's judgment free.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then the sounds like
Mm-hmm.
next one. And give us one more example. I just want to focus on those first two for just a second. What is this?
Yeah, yeah. So the sounds like is you're just repeating verbatim exactly what the person said.
Are you ending that? So you describe it, and then after that,
So
you
you
ask, what's
say what
going
you
on?
see and you say what's going on, and
What's
then they
going
say
on?
something. And then you say it sounds like, and you just repeat exactly what they said and then ask, is that right?
Are you paraphrasing or just actually repeating what they said?
I would just repeat.
So they feel heard.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can I just stop right there and ask people to reflect on just those first two? Does that seem practical to you? Are you thinking about it? Because people are coming here because they've got someone in mind, or they're thinking they want to support students that might be here from hard places. And so I would ask you guys, I'm not able to see the chat right now, but I would ask you guys to see what folks are saying in the chat. Well, I can see that Kat is
It's a
saying,
good question.
yeah, Kat
Yeah.
has
Well,
a great
what if
Can I
the
answer that
child,
question now?
what if the child does not say anything?
And that happens. It definitely happens. And so that's okay. And what that means is that they're probably thinking about it. And so they may not connect with you. They maybe trust hasn't been established yet. Building trust takes some time. This routine starts to build trust with students. And even if they don't have anything to say, when they walk out of that room, they're going to be thinking about that interaction. They're going to be thinking about, how am I feeling? That teacher noticed me, that teacher saw me. And so if they don't have anything to say, that's fine.
And
but
then
just go ahead, Larry.
and then after that is when the teacher offers some emotional words to describe what the student says they're feeling. Correct, Elise?
Well, they may not say what they're feeling after you ask them what's going on. If they do, that's wonderful.
Okay.
But this whole process, I'm learning myself of finding out what we are feeling is a process, right? Some people are very self-aware, other people are less self-aware, so they may not know yet how they're feeling. But
But
this is
you offer suggestions for words to put that they could possibly use. Right.
yes. Mhm.
Okay.
That third S, tell us that one again.
Suggest. So I have some physical cues for us to help us remember. And it looks like this. See, sounds like, suggest, support.
And then
And
the
I think
support part is when you ask them what you can do to support them right now.
Yeah. Yeah. How can I help? And they will might say, I don't know, nothing, right? But they're going to remember that. And the next time they might come to you and say, here's how you can help.
Kimberly in the chat is making a really good point that when you say I see, to ensure that it's not coming as an accusatory tone, which is certainly if a student is being disruptive in the classroom, it's, I mean, I know that I would be pretty annoyed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This brings up an important point too. And when I'm working with teachers on this, when they start seeing behavior, one of the first things I ask them to do is to open their hands. And so this is a physical cue to us to remember that what we think is going on may not be what's going on. And it also helps us to kind of calm down a little bit instead of come at them in an agitated sort of way, right?
Good. Hey, that's
Yeah,
really
behavior is
helpful.
communication. Somebody wrote that in the chat. That's exactly right.
And then Robin suggesting, can you narrate that to them later once they feel are safe, past tense? I saw you run out of the room earlier. What's going on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Good.
I just think that's a very practical thing that we can all work on. Like you said, we've got some physical cues to remind us, but even just the first two, trying to work on, like what you're saying, Larry, not assuming or it with judgment, but just here's what I see. I see you putting your hoodie down. I see you putting your hand down. I see that you threw something. Just training ourselves to start that way.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a great suggestion, I think, for what teachers should do. Now, what do you think are some specific actions teachers shouldn't take
Okay.
that can make student trauma worse? Not that teachers would necessarily do this out of malice, but
Mm-hmm.
just out of mistaken judgment. And certainly
Yep.
I've demonstrated many examples of mistaken judgment over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yes. So I
shouldn't they
have
do?
three things, but I want to add a fourth thing to it too. And I think we need to begin by having grace for ourselves, right? Because we make mistakes, and when I'm really into attachment science, and one of the things that we learn from attachment science is it's about rupture a relationship and repair. And what we learn from attachment science is that every interaction doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfectly emotionally attuned. We just have to be good enough. And when we can repair the relationship after that rupture, then that does an enormous amount of good. So before I mention these notes, I wanted to mention that first one of let's have grace with ourselves and the many mistakes that we have made and will continue to make as we do this work, right? Okay, so that being said, here's the don'ts. Number one, don't be trauma detectives like we mentioned earlier. Don't try to find their trauma stories. In my book that I wrote, it's called Discover, Connect, Respond. And so sometimes educators hear, oh, we need to discover whether or not they've experienced trauma. The thing with trauma is we don't know if we've experienced it many times. The students don't know if they've experienced it, and it's not our job to find out if they have or have not. So let's stay in our lane as educators and let's leave this type of very important work to the mental health professionals, right? So let's not try to find their trauma stories. Number two, let's not play psychologist. And this is really easy for me, especially because I love to help people. I want to be there for them. And so sometimes I find myself leaning in and I start going into that mode. And then I have to remind myself, I'm like, I am not a psychologist. I am an educator. And so I can be there for students. I can help them sit with tough emotions and feel emotionally regulated. I could connect with them, which is one of the most important roles as educators. But I am going to send them to the appropriate provider for them and help them find one in their language. And that is a cultural connection piece as well. So advocate for them instead of trying to take all the work on our own shoulders ourselves. So that's number two. Number three is on the other side is please don't ignore their emotional expression. Now, this is where we run into problems sometimes because sometimes we think of the brain as an organ into which we have to just deposit information, and we forget about the entire nervous system. And that when a student is experiencing emotional dysregulation, that's going to affect their logic, language, and learning. So don't swing on the other side and just ignore their experience whatsoever. So those are my three don'ts. Don't try to find the stories, don't play psychologist, and don't ignore their experience, but have grace with yourself as we try to do this work of connecting with them and helping them to feel seen and heard.
Well, we teachers are great at self-flagellation, so I think grace is good advice.
Mhm.
And I mean, of course, one of the big tricky things in trauma-informed education for teachers of multilingual learners is we don't always speak the language of our students, right? And it's challenging. As well, probably most of the people in this webinar are aware that last month Google added the live translate feature to Google Translate, which it makes things a lot easier to communicate with
Mhm.
with students. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And you
mean,
know
I
what?
don't know if anyone's tried that, but it's,
Mhm.
it's all you gotta do is press the live translate, put the phone down, and you speak. You speak, and you're in English, and then it will immediately translate what you say in basically in basic terms to the student's language. Uh,
Yeah.
and then vice versa. What they say, there's little lag time immediately after you say it, it will communicate it in the language.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Larry, I'm glad that you mentioned this translation and working with students who are at the starting line of language development, because I'm curious if some people have experienced this as an advantage with working with students as opposed to a detriment. I know that I've had some newcomer students come in who've been in the country less than 3 years and are at the very beginning lines of language production. And I've tried to talk to them and they were just shut down, right? But then if I could slide a phone across to them or a device and just be like, how are you doing in their heritage language? They're going to like look off to it to the side and then they're going to type back. And then having this thing between us on the side felt more comfortable for them than in their face, how are you doing today? Right? Has anyone else experienced that before? I'm curious.
Well, I would say that's the same reason why oftentimes using puppets
Mm.
works,
Yeah.
is great. When it be, the people are much more, may be much more likely to want to try to speak in English if their puppet is speaking as
Hmm.
opposed to them directly.
Now, I know there are folks in here that remember when we went to Zoom teaching during the pandemic that some students would engage more in the chat
Mhm.
than they had in the classroom. I see Kim nodding, right? Because there's something different about that way of communicating that just might feel better, some time to process. We don't know but I can see what you're saying, Elise, that it may have its advantages beyond just translation.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna ask if Elise, if you are able to screen share again the slide deck that we'll be emailing to everyone.
Yes, of course.
And there's a Q&A slide if you would be kind enough to, yeah, stop right there. So we
Hmm.
are be emailing this slide deck because there are some links to her Padlet and to some other things that we're going to be talking about. And also the last slide here has all the links that we'll be dropping. But we have this time here in the last 10 minutes or so for questions. I'm going to ask my
Well,
co-author, Anna, to help if you saw any questions in the chat. I grabbed one. Larry, did you
well,
see?
I see one from Carrie about the live translate, and I think it is audio and written.
What was her question?
Oh, I'm sorry, about when live translate works, does it work in only writing, or is it aud audio and writing? Um, because the point that she makes, obviously, is many of our students are not literate in their home language.
Right.
So,
It's so true, Carrie. I know our heart goes directly to students that maybe had missed some education or didn't have literacy in their heritage language. What I saw though, what I watched was students yes, using the speech to text feature, but also Google imaging as they were learning to get more literacy. If they wanted to communicate and they wanted to understand things, technology, they're just so good at utilizing it as they become more literate, supporting their literacy and communication. So it would be great if it had the audio version.
Yeah, I believe it does. I mean, when it first came out, I experimented with it, and I'm almost certain it was audio and in writing. But like I said, I'm
Yeah.
I'm looking at it now, and there's right on the main page, at least when you go on the phone, the lower left, there's the button that says live translate.
Carrie's saying she's gonna start right away.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. But I mean, those are the kind of things that we want to play around with and just see. Even the act of trying to connect with them to communicate in some way, I would think would have possibly an effect, a positive effect.
Yeah, and at least for Spanish, I know the Google Translate for Spanish is now at like 95% correct accuracy. It's crazy. For other languages, not quite as high, but it's pretty darn impressive for Spanish.
It's great.
So if you add up the fact that 65%, something like that, of communication is nonverbal, is body language, and then we're using images, gestures, things like that, and technology, and the fact that they understand a little more of this language, our common language every day, or the target language, I feel like we need to look at it that way. Yeah.
One other thing I was thinking about when we were talking earlier of how it's such an uncertain time for our multilingual students. One of the districts I was working with, we do kind of an icebreaker question about what are we carrying in our invisible backpacks. And this teacher told about a student who was a high performing multilingual student. And then all of a sudden, their test scores just dropped. And they're trying to figure out why is this student not performing like they normally do. And then they found out that he was literally carrying all of his document paperwork in his backpack with him to school every single day. And that his mom put it in there because she was so afraid of what would happen to him and how it was having an effect on his, of course it was, right? On his academic performance. But this is the work that we are called to do is somebody wrote in the chat about not making assumptions. That's exactly right. And finding out what is behind the lack of performance or the behavior. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question just real quick, Elise. So your book, which I love, thank you, Anna, for putting the link in the chat just now. And Elise is a key member of our newcomer division, and we are all so happy to have this resource now. So discover, connect, respond. The discover part, if you say we're not detectives, tell us a little bit about the discover part then.
Yeah. So the first part of discovering is to broaden our perspective because we come to our students often with unconscious assumptions about why they're performing the way they are. I like to say that as teachers, our superpower is also our kryptonite because we've been in the field for a long time and we say, this is not our first rodeo. We know what this is, right? But sometimes it's not what we think it is. So discovering involves broadening our perspectives, and there's specific tools for this for educators. The second part is listening to the child's voice and their behavior. So we're discovering what is the child attempting to express through their behavior, and looking at behavior as what they don't have the words to say, right? And then the third part is considering cultural assets. It's interesting that so often office referrals happen because of disrespect, but disrespect is different across cultures. And so there is a training piece in here for helping teachers to understand their child's culture, their students' culture, and how they could communicate cross-culturally with them. So that's the Discover piece.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I want to ask Larry if you had any other questions because we're about at end of our time. I think I have a million more questions, but thankfully, Elise has a newsletter. She has a blog. She's been on so many different podcasts. She has so many ways for us to keep learning from her. And if
And I'm
you,
going to ask her to write about the SSS for Ed Week.
there you go.
Oh, great.
It's so important. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for that. And Elise, I know you're doing a training coming up. I think we have just a couple more slides here. So that's a good segue because I was going
Okay.
to ask you, I know you go to districts, you've gone to multiple districts that have just really received the training well and the follow-up coaching. But if
Mhm.
anybody in here would like to get this, can you tell us about this coming up on December 11th?
Yes. So this is a 2.5 hour Zoom webinar. And we wanted to make it this way because I'm doing this all over the place. Like I'm working with the Department of Education in Colorado. And so people need a way to access this. And so that you could just zoom in, you could send this to whoever you want, send your administrator this link, right? And on this 2.5 hour Zoom, I unpack the 4 S's. It's a very interactive Zoom. And we'll be modeling strategies in the Zoom that are trauma informed for multilingual learners, that are user friendly, that you could take back to your setting and communicate very easily to some of your other faculty.
And they get your beautiful book with this.
That's right, they get the book too.
It's a big win. I would
Yes.
encourage everybody to join us on that day. We can't wait for this training, online
Mhm.
training. Would you click one more time, Elise, so we can tell
Yes.
about a few other things? We are so excited about this. Anna, do you mind unmuting and just telling us a little bit about what we're starting up again?
No, not at all. I'm so excited about it. So, some of you are loyal fans and friends who've been with us, especially during COVID. One of the ways that we were able to stay viable and visible and present and friendly, user friendly to all of you with our products and resources and trainings was to offer this webinar series. We did one about every 2 to 3 weeks or so, and it featured a wide range of our authors and consultants over topics that we thought would be most relevant to you guys in the trenches, in the classroom. Now, of course, at that time, it was really focused on virtual learning, but we thought there's no better time right now for teachers to be able to access these strategies, practical things they could be doing at no charge from us. And so we're really, really excited to be kicking this off again. Our first one will be more or less 1 month from today. So we're going to try this Tuesday webinar thing, see how it goes. We're starting at 4 p.m. Central Time. So that'll be 2 o'clock for those of you guys on the West Coast, 5 o'clock if you're joining us from the East Coast. We'll see how it goes. We might mix up the times and the days, but our first one will be Adrian Mendoza. He is our author of Teaching Math to English Learners, and he's been doing a lot of really deep work with coaching conversations. And so those are some of the tips that he wants to share with you guys. So if you have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to Carol. We're so happy about it. And you can register on our website or from the QR code on the slide.
And it's free, 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 free. We love free. Okay, can we click one more? Thank you, Anna. Could you click again, Elise, please? So we have one more slide after this where you can get all of these links. I know you've been maybe chasing them in the chat, but all things visual non-glossary. If you don't know about the visual non-glossary, please go check that out. We are all swearing by these amazing resources that we have from Seidlitz Education, and all things Seidlitz Education you would be able to access. We have some free downloads and things on our website and just different ways to follow us. I just appreciate everyone here. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who attended, of course, everybody who helped us with the chat and with the links. and definitely Larry Ferlazzo and Elise White Diaz. We really appreciate this conversation so much. Thank you so much.
And I just want to mention, quickly what Katie Holsenevsky and I always say in all of our books, that we only recommend 2 organizations to teachers' professional development: the National Writing Project and Seidlitz. So we've been saying that for 10 years. So
It's such a huge honor for us. We appreciate that so much because we all have you in such high regard, Larry. We're so glad you didn't leave completely off the face of the earth. You're getting tired. We're so happy about that. Elise, if you could click 2 more times and then, okay, 1 more time. I did want to just say a big thank you and let you know that when you get these slides, you can click. They're going to be clickable so that you can connect with Larry, with me, with Elise, or again with Seidlitz. And then if you'll go back 1 slide, this is the slide. You will get it in your inbox. But if you want to get that slide deck right now in a PDF, feel free to get that. Or if you're watching this in replay, you could scan this code and get that right away.
And I'm sorry, where's the code?
It's we're screen sharing it right now in the form of a QR code.
QR code?
Yes.
I gotcha.
And it might be in the chat, but I am having trouble opening my chat. I was
Oh,
trying.
yes. All of the links are in the chat. Thanks to Mark and Anna. They're just putting a whole bunch of links in there. So you can find them all there.
But within 24 hours, if you are in this Zoom, you will get an email with this slide deck that has all of that for you. So don't feel like you missed anything. So thank you again, everyone. I'm going to ask Anna or someone to start recording for us if anybody is able to do that. But we are going to hang out again, hang out for a little bit